Hello, friends. I'm Anderson Marchak,
And I'm Ricardo Segura.
and we are the Panel Bros. Welcome to the panel.
Welcome to the panel. Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
So, last year we did something that it was the first time we did it for the channel, and
Hmm.
it's that time again. So, um, it's around the time for the Oscars. It's Oscar season,
Yes.
and this is going to go up by the weekend of the Oscars. We're in
Hmm.
March of 2024. So, the Panel Bros have had time to watch some movies. Obviously, over the course of last year we had some
Hmm.
time to analyze the movies that we enjoyed the most. So for your viewing and listening pleasure, this is the Panel Bros official top 10 best movies of 2023 ranking.
Yes. Yes. I'm excited. These lists are always fun to do. Because you surprise yourself. Like I told you, there was a couple that surprised me that made my top 10. There was a couple that made my top 5 that I was surprised. There was other movies that I thought would be higher and they weren't. And also I have to preface with this. There are some movies that I just not didn't get to see. There's, with adult responsibilities and whatnot, there are just some movies I just did not get to see, and it's a bummer. And I know that, if I had seen them, there's a huge possibility they'd be on this top 10 list. So forgive me. I apologize. I wasn't able to see everything, but based on the movies that I saw, I think I was able to come up with a fun top 10 list.
Yeah, absolutely. And to echo what you just said, there was a lot that I saw that could have made the list. I think every year we feel like we can do a list of 20 apiece if we really wanted
Yes.
to.
Yes.
But we just shorten it down. So we're going to do 5 honorable mentions apiece, and then we'll get
Hmm.
into the top 10. So, Ricardo, if you could please kick things off for us with your honorable mentions.
Absolutely. All right. So my 5 honorable mentions. I'm going to start off with a director that seems to get beat up a lot over his filmography, but as of late I've been really enjoying a lot of his work, and I feel like, coming back to form. Movies are getting a little bit smaller in scale and going back to, old style filmmaking. The first one is Knock at the Cabin by M. Night Shyamalan.
Right.
I really enjoyed that as a solid standalone movie. And you already know that my favorite pro wrestler turned actor is Dave Batista. So watching Dave Batista give that level of a performance in a movie that was literally just a group of individuals sitting at a cabin talking about an apocalypse, and you're wondering whether this story is real, whether it's not real, is this going to happen in M. Night Shyamalan fashion, whether there's going to be a crazy twist and whatnot. So for me, Knock at the Cabin is the first on my honorable mentions list. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 2 was a very fun film that I didn't expect to like as much as I did. Dungeons and Dragons. Directors, I should say, John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. I
Yeah.
listen, when that trailer first came out, I was like, okay, that's gonna be a run-of-the-mill, like, Dungeons and Dragons movie. It'd probably be really silly, whatnot, whatever. That was a really fun movie. I had a lot of fun. When that movie was over, I was like, please, I want this movie to do well at the box office because I would love a sequel. Had a great cast. It was super funny. And this is coming from someone who does not play Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know anything about that game whatsoever. And usually it's a hit and miss, right? You'll have a movie with a massive IP that non-fans enjoy it, but then the fans of the IP are like, well, they changed this and they did that. But this was a movie that I felt everyone agreed. I felt like non-fans really enjoyed it, and Dungeons and Dragons fans enjoyed it, because I have a few friends that play, and they were like, dude, it was awesome. So for me, honorable mention number 2, Dungeons and Dragons. My third honorable mention is a movie called The Passenger. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen The Passenger?
No, I have
Director
not.
Carter Smith, starring Kyle Gallner or Gallner. I'm probably butchering his last name. The Passenger. And a very quick synopsis: you have an individual in this movie, our lead character, who is pretty much a doormat, and he's treated horribly. And then one day, someone comes into his life who tells him, I'm going to make your life better by helping you overcome all the trauma that you've had in your life that has made you the person you are today, quote unquote, a coward. But this person who's helping him isn't really a good person. And
Mm.
it's a very twisted movie. and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a mixture of horror. It kind of falls into horror a little bit more, but in my opinion, it's more psychological. And it's one of those movies where people hypothesize: is this other person a figment of their imagination? Is this his subconscious just trying to help him overcome all the stuff, or is this really someone with him? So that was quite enjoyable for me. A movie called The Passenger. It is on, I believe it's on Amazon Prime. If anybody wants to check that out, check out The Passenger. That movie is a movie that deserves more love. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but definitely made my honorable mentions list. My other honorable mention is from a very popular director. Everybody knows him, David Fincher, The Killer, starring Michael Fassbender. That movie is awesome. That movie could have very easily been in my top 10, but again, this was a battle. Like, there was a constant battle, but there was just something about this movie, and it went straight to Netflix, if I'm not mistaken. And I watched it, and there's a great tension and slow build throughout the entire movie. Michael Fassbender's great. David Fincher's great. There's not much else I can say about this movie without going to spoiler territory, because it is a very simplistic plot, but it's just it technically executed really, really well, and just an overall great film. So for me, the fourth honorable mention is The Killer. My last honorable mention was another movie that surprised me, Blackberry, director David Johnson, and starring Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton. This was another one of those movies that, when I was just like, oh, Blackberry, I heard a little bit about it, not too much, and I checked it out, and I was like, oh wow, this movie's great. It was a really, really good movie. And I got to say, Glenn Howerton's performance in this movie, for those who don't know him, he's mainly known for Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and great comedic actor. But in this movie, he is just like the biggest jerk, but a businessman. And watching this whole process of Blackberry and how it came to be, and dealing with all that, what should I say? What's the word? Controversy and everything that happened behind the scenes. Blackberry was just very, very enjoyable to me. And again, I love, like, sometimes I like massive movies, but I like a lot of really small scale movies too. And this was one of those movies that landed for me. So those are my 5 honorable mentions. They vary in genre and everything else, but yeah, I had a lot of fun this year with the movies that we saw in 2023.
Yeah, great picks. I really enjoyed Blackberry.
Blackberry's
really
good,
enjoyed
man.
Blackberry. Yeah, that was one of the movies I mentioned last year when we did our mid-year,
Mhm.
movies.
I think you were the one that recommended it to me. I believe it was. I think you were like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
watch Blackberry," and I was like, "Okay."
A lot of people are talking about Howerton, that he's on that cusp
Yeah.
of just
Yup.
getting that next role that people are gonna really recognize him for. So
Mhm.
definitely. Alrighty, so here we go with Anderson's honorable mentions, and we're gonna start things off here with Martin Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon. And
Ah.
it's just really epic.
Mhm.
Just just Leo, we got Lily Gladstone, we a newcomer, like,
Yeah,
just great performances, nominated for 10 Oscars. So
bro.
might clean up at the Oscars a little bit with a few major not just nominations but wins. So
Mhm.
um enjoyed that movie. Just great, great stuff all the way around. My next honorable mention is Creed 3.
Yes,
And
Creed 3 was good.
I saw a lot of movies that I thought were done really well, but Creed 3 just moved me. It
Mhm.
was just Michael B. Jordan. He directed it as well, so I
Yeah.
wanted to give a shout out to that. And just great performances, especially from Jonathan Majors.
Mhm.
So just I enjoyed Creed 3, and it's just continuing that story, and we'll see where it goes, if they continue it or not. Another one here we have, it's a foreign film, Past Lives. And
I heard about this. I heard
yes.
about this.
So Past Lives has 2 Oscar nominations, one for Best Original Screenplay and one for Best Picture. And let's see here. It's directed by Celine Song. So let me see here. Yes, Celine Song. It's like a romance, but
Mhm.
it's really emotional. We have
Okay.
these times in our lives where we think about what would have happened or could have happened with friendships, relationships, jobs, whatever the case may be. So for me, it just it hit me. It'll make you think about things in your life. What if I made a different decision with certain things here and there, how they would have
Yeah.
turned out? But obviously, this one is about a romance, and credit where credit is due. I enjoyed it. Another one here, we're just gonna go with the nostalgia bait, the nostalgia goggles, as you like to call it, and it's
Yes.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. And
Oh,
You forgot about it,
That's
didn't you?
I
Or you
yes,
haven't or
yes,
you haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
Dude, there's so many that fell through the cracks this year for me. I feel so
yeah.
terrible. I feel so terrible.
Yeah, I went to the theater to see it, and I also saw it on
Mhm.
home video as
Okay.
well, so streaming. Um, it's great. It's great. Probably, I don't know, top 10 TMNT movie ever for me.
I gotta watch it. I have
Possibly
to watch it
top 2,
immediately.
you
That's
know?
dude, and that yeah, that's praise, man. That's praise.
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously behind the live action
Yes.
original, the live action original,
Yes.
that's original. That's the favorite, but a lot of fun. It's like a reimagining plus honoring the old school Eastman and Laird
Mhm.
comic books, bringing in like new stuff too. So really enjoyed it. A lot of people compared it to the Spider-Verse movies, just that type of
Yes.
feel. So, and lastly, here is one that you really enjoyed, and it was nominated for Best Visual Effects at the Oscars. We're gonna go with Godzilla minus one, and
Oh,
yeah,
bro.
yeah, yeah. So
Such a good one.
I like science fiction, I like action, but kaiju is not really one of my favorite things, so to speak. And
Mhm.
I was a Godzilla fan when I was a kid, but I didn't know what was going on. I just saw this big monster just destroying everything, you know?
Yeah.
And I've seen the Godzilla movies over the years. I enjoyed them, but it wasn't something that hit me as emotionally as Godzilla minus one. So we have another foreign language film here. And oh man, what can you say about Godzilla minus one? It's just they
Bro.
they really focused on the what do you call it? The humans. Uh,
Yes. The human counterparts were done really well, dude.
yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Godzilla looked I want to look up a couple of things here because there was like a budget situation here, and
Yeah. 100%.
all right, so directed by Takashi Yamazaki, and it was made for between 10 and 12 million. And
Okay.
this movie looked gorgeous with the way it
Oh, it
was
looks
done.
amazing.
Yeah, and it made 107 million. So, for all the talk about these major studio movies and blockbusters, they made one of the best Godzilla movies ever. Some people were calling it the best Godzilla movie ever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
good for them. And they even got an Oscar nomination as well. So there we go for my honorable mentions there.
Yes.
All righty.
And look, they are good.
Yeah, absolutely. So can we do a quick recap, Ricardo? Your honorable mentions and then mine.
As I said, Knock at the Cabin, Dungeons and Dragons, The Passenger, The Killer, and Blackberry.
All right. And my honorable mentions are Killers of the Flower Moon, Creed 3, Past Lives, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Mutant Mayhem, and Godzilla minus one. All right.
Yeah.
So here we go with our official top 10 best movies of 2023. Ricardo.
All right. This is the fun stuff. This was the battle, man. Look, there was quite a few pictures on this list that either they went up and down on this list. Some went back and forth, whether they were in honorable mentions, whether they were in the top 10, things of that nature. All right. So we're going to start with my number 10. Now, this is very coincidental. This was not intentional whatsoever that it just so happened to land at number 10. We are talking about a horror movie, a little horror movie you might have heard of. Saw 10 lands in my top 10
Okay.
for the year for a couple of reasons. One, the Saw franchise, in my opinion, really dipped. It really dropped. Once the movies kind of just kept going and going and going. Like, as we know, I absolutely love the first Saw movie. Absolutely love the first Saw movie. I think that Tobin Bell, as John Kramer, is so vital to this franchise that when we lost him, it was a huge hit. And they kept trying to find ways to interweb him, mess with the timeline, do this and do that. And Saw 10 was able to do that in a way that it felt like it fit narratively. We didn't have to play an extra hoops. Like, no, this takes place between this movie, and that's it. But it was also I'm not a big gore guy, so it wasn't the fact that this movie had gore in it whatsoever, but it felt like there was a lot of emotional weight in this movie that I hadn't really seen from a lot of the other Saw films. And I love that we could add that type of emotional weight. I told you, and I told a few other people, because my cousin was like, "Hey man, watch Saw 10." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, watch it." He goes, "I cried." I'm like, "You cried at a Saw movie?" I kid you not. There was a scene in this movie that made my eyes water. And I was like, why am I getting emotional during a Saw movie? But it was done in such a way. And I don't even want to get into spoiler territory, because if you haven't seen it, I'm like, hey, go check it out. Maybe you like it, maybe you won't. But it was a movie that reminded me again how important the John Kramer character is. And the performance from Tobin Bell is so good. And this man like is just continuing to perform on such a high level, especially for what many would consider just a horror movie, if you will, because again, they always get slandered like that, but he brings it. And this isn't about the gore or anything like that. I really enjoyed the story, and I remember walking away after seeing that movie and go, wow, that was fantastic. Great emotional weight, great story beats, and great performance from Mr. Tobin Bell that kind of brought new life to the franchise. So much so that they're like, can we keep using him? Can we do another one? And I'm like, you know what? Just scrap the other ones. Like, I'm one of those guys. You know what? Yeah, just forget those existed. If we could get Tobin Bell back, bring him back. So for me, my number 10, again, surprised, is Saw 10 itself.
All right. My number 10 is one of your honorable mentions, and it
Ooh,
is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor
yeah,
Among
it's a good one.
Thieves. So, as you stated, directed by Dalian Goldstein. Um,
Mhm.
just a lot of fun. A
It
lot of
was it was
fun.
great.
It's I don't know what it was that I didn't expect it to be that fun and that good,
Mhm,
actually. To me, personally. Um, I'm not a big D&D fan,
mhm.
the game itself, the tabletop game, but I've played a lot of role-playing games over the years in video games.
Okay.
So a lot of that fantasy lore, I understood a lot of what was going on there. So maybe not all of it, but at least some of it. And just really funny, fun movie, action-packed. Chris Pine, just so well cast as the lead for what they were
So
going.
good. So
Yeah,
good.
really charming. And that's about it. I went to see it, and just such a big surprise. And when I went to do my list, I said, you know what? I got to give some love to Dungeons and Dragons. So that was my
Yeah.
number 10.
It's a good pick. I had a lot of fun with it. For my number 9, also a fun movie, a movie I thought when I first saw it would be higher on my list. And because it's in the position that it's in does not mean I enjoy it any less. I just seem to walk away with those other movies going, yeah, like for whatever reason. Again, this was a battle. Okay. So my number 9 is Barbie.
All
The
right.
Barbie movie is my number 9. I really thought when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be top 5, top 6 or whatever. But there was quite a, again, you start to go back through your list and you're like, oh man, Barbie is my number 9. I don't know what else I can say about Barbie. Barbie was a great time. It was funny. There was great emotional beats. I love the plot. I love what the movie was trying to tell us. Not trying, but what the movie did tell us, about men and women. I enjoyed the performances. Ryan Gosling getting nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I walked out of the theater the first time watching that, and I was like, yo, that guy better get nominated. Margot Robbie is fantastic as always. Gives an unbelievable performance. I don't think like she is Barbie, the same way that she is Harley Quinn to many people still. When I see Margot Robbie, I'm like, she is Barbie. Great movie overall, a lot of fun, made me cry. I'm a sensitive guy. I say it time and time again. Absolutely made me cry. And at the end of the day, I had a really good time with that whole Barbenheimer weekend. So it was definitely making top 10. I thought it'd be a little higher. Again, number 9 is nothing to sneeze at. This is a top 10 list of the year. So for me, my number 9 is Barbie.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because my number 9 is Barbie as well.
Damn, there
So
it is. There it is. And there was no communication prior to this.
no,
So
there
that's
was
great.
not.
That's great.
Really enjoyed it. Just such a incredible weekend for
Hmm.
Barbenheimer. We both did our breakdown for both movies, Oppenheimer
Hmm.
and Barbie. So that was a great weekend for us. We saw Barbie separately, and then we saw
Yes.
Oppenheimer together. Um, did you see Oppenheimer first or Barbie first?
I saw I believe I saw Barbie first. I saw Barbie
Okay.
first, I believe. I believe I saw Barbie first. Because we
Okay.
saw it on a no.
I saw
I saw Oppenheimer first.
we saw
Yeah.
Oppenheimer on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So
Oppenheimer we saw first. And then I believe that week, maybe like the Wednesday or Thursday, we saw Barbie.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I saw Oppenheimer on Saturday with you, and then I saw Barbie Sunday the very following day. So I
Yeah,
got my
yeah,
Barbenheimer weekend. But
yeah.
Barbie was great. We did our breakdown already. So not much more we can say except for me, just I really enjoyed it. A great message, just way better than it had any place being, any
Yeah.
business
For
being.
a
Like
Barbie movie,
no,
absolutely.
no one thought it would be as good as it was. Ended up being the number
Mhm.
one movie. Um, uh, Grossing wise of the year, money wise. We're looking at let's see here, 8 Oscar nominations,
Yup.
including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor Ryan Gosling, Best Supporting Actress America Ferrera. We have a Best Adapted Screenplay for Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. The list goes on. Um, yeah, so Barbie, just a fun
Barbie.
time, and just another iconic role for Margot Robbie. First Harley,
Yep.
and now Barbie. So there we go, number
I
9.
love I love that we tied at 9 without talking about it. Like that stuff's always fun to me. It's like, oh, we both got at number 9. Okay. So we are now to my number 8. My number 8, as you guys all know by now, I'm a huge sci-fi guy. I love the genre. I love the sci-fi genre. This is a movie that I wish I had seen in the theater. Unfortunately, I had to wait for it to hit streaming, but once it hit streaming, I was on top of it. I'm talking about The Creator from
Yeah.
director Gareth Edwards. The Creator was just that
Wow.
movie, man. I absolutely loved it. I'm a huge fan again of sci-fi and the idea of AI and introducing that into films and in just a basic conversation of like, how far is too far? Like when can you accept these type of within the film, these type of robotics, these type of AI? When can we start to accept them as beings, worthy of being able to what we would consider life and whatnot? And I love that question throughout the movie, and I love that our lead character, John David Washington, who plays Joshua in the film, exploring himself as the movie progresses, and this idea of being against this type of technology, if you will, and a progression that we see. And I'll be honest with you, that a progression I was having, because as I'm watching the movie and I'm like, it's AI, they're robots, but as the movie continues, it gets a little bit deeper than that. And this was another movie that emotionally shattered me at the end. This absolutely did. And this was another movie that didn't have what many would consider a gigantic budget, but they were able to pull off some amazing visual effects with the budget that they had. Another one of those films that I'm just going to enjoy watching time and time again. Thoroughly enjoyed it from beginning to end. Love the sci-fi genre. You get to play with the rules, make them and break them as you will. But for me, my number 8, the creator, director, Gareth Edwards, really, really good time.
All right, so we're here at my number 8, and for my number 8, it's going to be an animated movie. And
Ooh,
yes, it's I believe it's Pixar, and it is Elemental.
yes.
So for me, oh man, just another surprise. Let's see here. I gotta pull a couple things up. So let's see here. It's Pixar, Disney Pixar.
Mhm.
So the ongoing thing about these movies is that the point of them is to make you cry,
Yep.
and to a fault. But you know
Yep.
what? That's okay.
Yep.
That's
That's how
okay.
they get you.
Sometimes it's okay to be in our feels, and for me, um, I was in my feels during this movie. There's a bit of a social commentary between the
Yes.
elements mixing with one another, and that kind of hit me. There was a
Mhm.
little bit of culture, um, uh, somewhat of a like an Asian influence for the
Yeah.
fire, um, the character from the Fire People. So
Mhm.
it resonated with me personally, and it was a bit of a love story too, which is
Mhm.
something Pixar doesn't really lean into too much. You'll have a romance, but not really like a true love story, and it felt like
Yeah.
a true love story to me. Um, so for me, it was that's another thing that made it special for me. I'm taking a look here. This director, so Peter Sohn,
Mhm.
and the only other movie that he directed was The Good Dinosaur.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's
another,
another one.
yeah, another tearjerker. But
Grab the tissues.
he's worked on at like there's a ton of movies here animated that he's worked on, just not as a director. Iron Giant,
Mhm.
Finding Nemo, Incredibles, Ratatouille, Wally. So he's got a pretty big resume here of animated movies, just not as the director. But great job for Elemental. I watched it once in the theater and then I did a home watch, and I enjoyed it both times. So number 8,
Dude,
Elemental.
it's
Yeah.
it's a good one. That one plays at my house quite often for the
All
girls.
right. Nothing
Like
wrong with
they
that.
they quite often. I was like, oh man, the little ones, they love that one. That's a good pick. Okay, so we are now at number 7. So my number 7, we're gonna dip back into the horror genre. And if you know me, this was gonna be on my top 10 list. This came out in March of 2023. We're talking about an IP, a franchise that I love from beginning to end, unapologetically. My number 7 is Scream 6.
All right.
That's my number 7. I loved Scream 6. I love Scream 1, in my opinion, is the GOAT. And I can play with that list as many times as possible. Scream 6, I remember walking out going, guys, that might be my number 2 out of the franchise. Like, it was that good. I remember going to the theater, and within those first few minutes, me and my wife went to see it in the theater. I leaned over to her, and I was like, uh-oh. Like, I was nervous. I was like, uh-oh, what just happened? Uh-oh. And then within probably another 3 to 4 minutes, they hooked me so hard with their quick writing and wit that I immediately, like, I remember grabbing the seat and my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be the best. This is gonna be the best. This is gonna be the best. I'm ready. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love that you can have an IP that goes this long. We're in the 6th film of the franchise, and in my opinion, can still be fresh, unique, and still take risks and do new things that I didn't expect to see happen. And I'm just a huge fan of that franchise overall. And it's hard for me to walk away from a Scream film and not enjoy it, even if it doesn't land the way I wanted to. Luckily for me, this one landed. Like, I love this movie. Again, next to the first one, this might be my number 2, which is high praise because I don't think anyone's touching the first. But to be my number 2 in the Scream franchise is really, really, really good and high. So for me, my next film on the list is Scream 6.
All right. And you've made no excuses about it. They had you from the opening scene, which was well done, but they closed it with I don't want to ruin it here, but they closed it with a very poignant line, a rated R line. And yeah.
That's when I knew we were in for something special, because as I mentioned, I was very nervous in that opening. I was very, very, very nervous. I was like, wait, what are we doing? And then they hooked me. And with that one line, I was like, we are in for something special. This is on my top 10 immediately. And it is my absolute number 7.
Good stuff. Alrighty. So we're still here at number 7. And for me, my number 7 was directed by Ben Affleck, and it is Air. So
yes.
I saw this one in the theater, and I had to hit Ricardo up immediately afterward because this was another one that was just a very emotional movie for me. So well acted. A lot of people are talking about the fact that this was snubbed by the Oscars, not a single nomination. And
that blew me away.
Yeah. And when I watched it, in my mind, I'm just like, there's no way Matt Damon is not getting nominated for this movie. He did such a good job. Forget about the fact that maybe they could have gotten screenplay, best director, best picture, at least Matt Damon for that performance. But unfortunately, the Academy didn't recognize it, But for me, just really well done. And it's a movie about the Air Jordans, the shoe.
Yeah.
And it was just so clever. They didn't show Michael Jordan's face the entire time
good.
because it wasn't a biopic about him. It was about the shoe.
No.
And they focused on his mom, played by Viola Davis. And everyone does a great job in the movie. So that's as far as that goes. I know that you won't be hearing about it during Oscars weekend. So I said I got to give it a shout out on a top 10 list here. So
good.
Number 7. Yeah, Air.
Yeah. Love that movie, by the way. We are now at my number 6. My number 6 is a movie that will now be added to my Christmas rotation every year. We are talking about The Holdovers from director Alexander Payne, starring Paul Giamatti. I don't know what I expected going into this movie. I saw people talking about it quite often on social media and the buzz of the Oscar nominations. And I was like, oh, okay. I know. I didn't even watch a trailer for it. I was like, okay, let's check it out. And I always have a soft spot for coming of age stories, stories where a character has to learn and has to grow. And it's a Christmas movie, so that just gets extra bonus points. And the idea of Paul Giamatti playing that professor who's stuck behind on winter break with that one troublesome student, who's got neglect from his own home and his own parents, and them having to spend a holiday together. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I remember I hit you up, and I think I said I watched it twice in one weekend. Like, I was like, I absolutely love this movie. I think Paul Giamatti, I think his performance is fantastic. I absolutely understand why he got nominated for the Oscar. Terrific performance. I've always been a fan of Paul Giamatti, but this was one of those performances where I was like, no, I get it. Like, I absolutely get it. And I'm so happy that it's based around my favorite holiday, because now, again, this will be on my holiday rotation. So for me, my next film on the list at number 6 is The Holdovers.
All right. So we're here at number 6 for me, and it is a movie directed by Christopher McQuarrie. We're talking about Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Ooh.
Wow. So action movie here. These movies are enjoyable. So a lot of people say they took a turn, on the upswing after Part 4. I want to say,
Okay.
what was that? Was that Ghost Protocol? I forget what they're called, but
Yeah.
yeah, but in any case, just since then, and then when Christopher McQuarrie came along, it was just kind of like him and Tom Cruise were like this new like duo here, just making these incredible action movies. And for this one, it was just so thrilling for me. Haley Atwell looks like she could be an action star.
Oh my God, dude.
Like a lot of you know her from the MCU as Peggy Carter, but it's like, oh wow, we have a potential action star in our hands here.
Yes.
And doesn't even blink once, being opposite Tom Cruise, what some people consider the GOAT.
Yes. You know what I mean?
One of the GOATs, just as far as being a movie star. So for me, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, just a fun time. I don't know if it's on your list, but maybe not. We'll see. But
Maybe not. We'll see.
But I did enjoy it.
Yes. And it's good, dude. I was crushing on Haley a lot, because again, seeing her in this action piece and keeping up with Tom, it was amazing. Like, I was like, can we get her in more of these films, please? She's incredible. So I'm happy that that's where it is. We are now at the top 5. We are top 5. My top 5 was a film I got to see in the theater, and I'm so happy that I did. My number 5 is Godzilla Minus One. Wow. Director Takashi Yamazaki. I hope I said that correctly. I absolutely loved this movie. Growing up, I seen Godzilla films. I have not been, nor am I attached to Godzilla films the way that certain fans are. There are people that absolutely love the Godzilla films. I've seen them, and that's pretty much it. Like, I've seen the films, and I've enjoyed them. I believe the 2014 one was one that I really enjoyed, but I'm talking about like the classic old school Godzilla films. I've seen them, but there was no real attachment to them. This movie shook me to my core. I saw it in theaters. I'm so happy that I did. This had a Godzilla that was frightening.
Oh, yeah,
and I hadn't seen that in a while. As we know, over the previous years, we've had a darker version of Godzilla, but we've also had a very fun type of Godzilla movie. And this reminded us of how horrifying Godzilla could be. And the message of the movie was about the humans coming together to stop a singular threat and what Godzilla represents. And in that sense, the movie absolutely crushed it. Really emotional movie. I probably cried 3 times in this thing, from scenes of hope, from scenes of just pure sadness, and just loss, just terrible loss within the movie and whatnot. And the movie just does a really good job where a lot of movies, kind of fall apart. We've heard this in many types of movies where the human characters in these types of film, they either suffer through writing or they lack, or people are just more interested. Why do we need so many human characters in Transformers movies? Why do we need so many human characters in the Godzilla movies? We just want to see the kaiju. We want to see the Autobots. We want to see these characters. This was one of those movies where it was so well done. At no point in the film was I like, oh, I wish I got more Godzilla. And not saying I didn't want to see him, but but the human characters were so interesting and intriguing, and they really just dove into that, and I absolutely loved it. In my opinion, it is the best Godzilla film to date. I've heard many other people say that, and I agree. Haven't seen it, spent time with it, watched other Godzilla movies. Again, I'm a huge fan of the 2014, but this one just landed in all the right places, and I hope that the success will continue. I know they talked about a sequel, and we'll see what happens. But if no sequel follows, I'm perfectly fine. This movie was absolutely incredible to me. So for me, it absolutely deserves that top 5 spot. So I'm happy it's at my 5.
All right. I'm a little surprised it was that high, but good for
Hi,
you.
bro.
Yeah. And
Woo!
just let's not gloss over that statement there. Best Godzilla movie ever,
In
in
my
your
opinion, the
opinion. Wow,
best Godzilla movie to date.
strong opinion.
Just because the emotional stakes, I cared about the humans. Whenever Godzilla was on screen, I was scared. I wasn't in that like, oh, great, we're going to get a scene of destruction. I was like, no, can that character make it out, please? Can that character make it out, please? Usually in these types of movies, you have characters that are very expendable. No one was expendable in this movie. And that gets major credit that at any point in the film that I say, oh, that person could go. No, I wanted to lose no one. And the fact that we had scenes where we lost people and I was emotional about it, testament to the writing. Absolutely loved it.
Alrighty, so we're here with my number 5, and it is a movie Ricardo already mentioned. My
Yeah.
number 5 is The Creator, directed by Gareth
Yes.
Edwards. I'm a big fan of original movies.
Mhm.
We have, and it's fine. IPs are great. Franchise
Mhm.
movies are great when they're done well, but it's such a breath of fresh air now when we can get an original film. And oh man, I loved this movie. It was so
So
good.
good. It's so good.
They brought an emotional aspect with the young child, and
Yep.
John David Washington. He continues to get more and more work, and I had to take a look at Gareth Edwards, who is no slouch at this point,
Mhm.
with his movies, Monsters, the original 2014 Godzilla,
Yep.
Rogue One, a Star Wars story, The Creator, and then he just got announced for the new Jurassic movie.
Yeah, dude.
I think Jurassic City is the rumored title. So
Yes.
Gareth Edwards is no slouch at this point. As I stated, I love Rogue One. It's
Yes.
probably my favorite Disney Star Wars movie. When Disney took
Mhm.
over, I want to say it's probably my favorite Disney Star Wars movie. So, but in any case, just great original sci-fi movie. I enjoyed the soundtrack. I enjoyed just the emotion. It's very relevant as far as AI goes now,
Mhm.
and it's a story we've heard before where the robots become self-aware. But you know what?
Mhm.
That's okay.
Yes.
Sometimes,
Yes.
um, sometimes if you present something in a way that hasn't been done before, it hits. And that for me, that's why I enjoyed the creator so much. I did want to give a shout out to the Radiohead song,
Mhm.
"Everything in Its Right Place." So um, I've heard that song before, and I said, "Oh man, what a great song!" So the creator, Gareth Edwards.
So good. It's so good. All right. So for my number 4 is a movie that you already mentioned as well. My number 4, we already talked about it, so we'll just get right through it. Air, directed by Ben Affleck. Air is in my number 4. As you know, we're both really big on this. Um, I'm a huge fan of actor directors, man. Actors that to become directors, and a guy like Ben Affleck, who we've seen successfully transition from being a great actor to a great director, and just continuing to show like how good he really is in that position. Ben Affleck could absolutely step away from acting if he wanted to, just work behind the camera, and I would have no doubts whatsoever. I love that he still works in front of the camera and behind, but he's one of those guys that I'm like, oh, if he transitions to be a full-time director, no doubts whatsoever. You had a strong cast like you. I really believed after that. The whole movie, his performance is great, but there's one monologue in that film
Yeah,
that I was like, Matt Damon is getting nominated for the Oscar. So I was very shocked and surprised to see that wasn't the case, but it doesn't take away from the fact that his performance was wonderful. Everyone, Viola Davis also touched on the fact that I absolutely love the decision not to show Michael Jordan's face, because as we mentioned, that it could somehow take away from the movie, because then people could focus on, well, who's the actor they got to play Jordan? oh, why is that? He doesn't really like Jordan. He doesn't have that charisma, that feel that Michael Jordan had. And you didn't want that conversation. It wasn't about Jordan. It was about the shoes. It's about the shoes and how they came to be and everything else. So for me, my number 4, great performances, great direction, as always, from Mr. Ben Affleck, is Air.
All right. So my number 4 here is a movie I saw recently. It was released sometime late December 2023. So I didn't get to see it until recently, but just such an emotional movie. It was directed by Sean Durkin, and it is The Iron Claw. So
see,
I know you really wanted to see that.
Listen, I want everybody to hear me right now.
Yeah.
This would have been on my list had I seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
This absolutely would have been on. I know it. It would have been there. And I'm so
Yeah.
mad at myself I haven't been able to see it yet.
So
Continue.
yeah. So a little bit of personal information. Ricardo and I are professional wrestling fans. So we watch professional wrestling. Sometimes we're in it, sometimes we're not, but we've watched it, over the years. And this is about the Von Erich family. And
Yeah.
there's so much to say about this. We had an amazing performance from Zac Efron. He plays Kevin Von Erich. I'm putting it out there right now. Probably his best performance he's ever given in a movie. We have Jeremy Allen White as Kerry Von Erich. For those of you that watch wrestling, he was the Texas Tornado. And I'm not going to go down the whole list here, but just 2 really strong performances. Every scene feels like a gut punch in this movie. And I don't disagree with Ricardo because I know him and I know he would probably have it in his top 10 because
it would have made it.
Like me, Ricardo loves strong performances. It's a subject matter that, we're both passionate about, which is professional wrestling. For those of you that don't know, I'll pull away the curtain a little bit here. Ricardo was a professional wrestler for a part of his life,
right.
So please check this movie out. It was snubbed by the Oscars, not a single nomination, but for me, The Iron Claw, I'm getting choked up thinking about it. Just such an emotional movie. And yeah, there we go.
It's my biggest heartbreak so far is that I didn't get to see it, and I've checked periodically, and it's like it's not even available to stream yet. You can purchase it, but it's not available to stream in any other format. And I was like, oh man, and again, I'm trying to catch up on other movies, and it fell through the cracks, and I'm so upset. I really really want to see it, and again, I can tell from how you spoke about it, from the word of mouth from other peers, that this would have definitely made my top 10. But c'est la vie. I'll watch it as soon as I possibly can. Okay. Now we are at our top 3. These are the big ones. These are the big hits. My number 3 is an animated film, and I'm very happy that it's as high as it is. My number 3 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We have talked about these films in terms of scale in comparison. When you talk about all the Spider-Man films, you talk about the best, you go from top to bottom. The Miles Morales Spider-Verse films, they land in every way that they need to, and they are relatively high on my Spider-Man list, on my comic book film list, and on this list, and rightfully so in my opinion. I absolutely love this movie, and it felt epic. It felt like we were really like walking to the deep ends of the pool. In the first film, it's kind of like we just got our toes wet, and this one really explored and opened up. It's super funny, but just like the first, it knows when to really bring that emotional weight, and you feel the stakes. And that was really really important to me, is that you can feel that. And it was a giant love letter to Spider-Man fans. It's no secret that Spider-Man is arguably one of Marvel's biggest properties. I'm extremely happy that Miles Morales is getting the love that he's getting, and he's becoming a character that many will learn as their first Spider-Man. There are kids growing up that their introduction to Spider-Man is Miles Morales, and I think that is absolutely awesome that we're seeing that. I have friends whose kids are really young, and they are biracial kids, and they're seeing this Spider-Man as their first Spider-Man, and that is absolutely amazing. Again, I'm Puerto Rican. Seeing a half black, half Puerto Rican Spider-Man, Miles Morales, doing as amazing as he's doing in these films, and I'm rooting for it. I'm rooting for this picture just as much as I was rooting for the first. But everything about this movie hits. Emotional stakes, funny, just everything. Great introduction to new characters, bringing back characters from the first movie, giving them more lore to explore with Gwen. Just chef's kiss of a movie. My number 3, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
My number 3 movie for 2023 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, baby. That's 2. We got 2.
Yeah, such a strong film. I did want to give a shout out here. So Elemental is nominated for Best Animated Feature,
Mhm.
but also nominated for Best Animated Feature is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So
Yeah.
not to throw some favoritism here, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won an Oscar that year. Let's make it
It
2 for
did.
2.
That's what I want.
Let's no shade towards Pixar's Elemental, but
Mhm.
this film was it wasn't just a good animated movie, it was a good movie,
Yeah.
a period. And for me, just continuing to lean into that culture of
Yeah.
Miles being Black and Puerto Rican, and just the
Mhm.
city. The city feels like a character itself. That's a cliche line, but I'm gonna drop it. The city feels
Yeah.
like a character, just visually. You lean more into that multiverse thing with all the different characters. You had a couple like live action cameos, so to speak, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that. But the soundtrack is so strong too.
Oh, so good.
Such a strong soundtrack. And I'm not gonna count the chickens before they're hatched, but if this one gets the Oscar, we got to root for the third one, right?
Yep. Let's get a clean sweep, man. We can do it. We
Yeah.
can absolutely do it.
And shout out to Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. They wrote the first
Yeah.
one. They also wrote the second one. They changed directors from the first into the second one. We have Dos Santos, Powers, and Thompson. So 3 people directed the second one here. So for me, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And, shout out to Sony for doing what they did for these movies, because we don't really know how that's going to work with Miles in the live action, like if Sony's going
Yeah.
to be allowed to use him, if Marvel Studios is. But for right now, they're laying the foundation where
Yeah.
once he is introduced into live action, he's going to be very popular. He's popular now, but he's going to be, super popular, or even more popular rather, once he gets introduced to live action. So good stuff. Across the Spider-Verse, number 3.
I'm so glad. I did want to mention there's a small moment in the movie where he looks to his mom and he says bendición, and she goes que Dios te bendiga. And as a Hispanic, that just hit really hard. For people who don't know, it's a greeting we do with our elders where you ask for their blessings and they give it to you. They give you their blessings, and you do it with your mom, your aunt, your cousins, your older cousins and whatnot. And I had friends that we were in private chats talking about it. I was like, "Do you see Spider-Man?" And we would talk about it, and he goes, "Oh man," when he said bendición. And I was like, right. And it's little moments like that, and I just wanted to put that out there. It makes the movie just even more special. We are now at number 2. Now, there's a movie you haven't mentioned yet, and I think our top 3 are the same.
I think so too.
I think we're the same. My number 2 is John Wick 4. Is that what's happening here?
Maybe.
John Wick 4 is my number 2.
All right.
In my top 10 for the year. Keanu Reeves. Nobody's really doing it like him right now, right? Like the Keanu Reeves is back. The Keanu Sans, however you want to refer to it.
Yes.
It's just been absolutely amazing to watch this man come back with this amazing standalone film, John Wick 1, and explode into this really, really awesome world building IP. Like, there isn't anyone on the planet at this point who doesn't know who John Wick is now. And I think that's so awesome that what started off as a very small film being directed by a stunt man and stunt crews and coming together and just showing the world like what these films could be like with minds behind the camera that are really ingrained in that world, the stunt community, and they've just done a wonderful job. So when John Wick 4 came around, you're kind of like, what else could they do in this point? And John Wick 4 is able to still introduce amazing stunts, brand new visuals, and cap the story in such an amazing way, because you're always curious, where is this going to go? For those who have followed the franchise from the first movie up into the fourth, it's like, where are we going to go? And they go to a place, and I thought it was handled so well. We have spin-offs that they're working on. We have Ballerina coming out. They have the Continental TV show. There is a world that has exploded from the John Wick universe. And I'm just so happy that I went to go see John Wick 4 in theaters, and I left with the biggest smile on my face because they absolutely nailed it. The fourth movie was exactly what it needed to be. Amazing performance, physicality wise, and just able to cap the story. And I felt the perfect way. I don't think you could have ended that movie any better, in my opinion. So for me, my number 2, John Wick 4. I'm curious what your number 2 is. I'm curious.
Before we
What your
get
number
to it, now I know you didn't have Mission Impossible on your list at all.
I didn't have it on there.
Was it
But and it
close
was
to
just
being an
yes.
honorable mention? Okay.
Oh yeah, 100%. And
All
the
right.
only reason it just wasn't in my honorable mention, I tried to slip movies in my honorable mentions that people probably hadn't heard of. So that's why, like, I had movies like The Passenger in there. I was like, I feel like a lot of people haven't heard about
Right.
that. And I'm like, all right, Mission Impossible is such a big franchise. I was like, you know what? They already know that's out there. I don't need to do it. And again, it almost made it on my top list. But a lot of these movies that made it for like emotional stakes. Again, Saw 10 made it because of how it made me feel emotionally. And with the Mission Impossible film, the latest, I felt like in the franchise, it was really good, but I think there are other movies within the franchise that I enjoyed better within the Mission Impossible franchise. But I love the movie, like no mistake. Again, like this was a battle. Like if you told me we could done a 15, it probably would have been in the 15.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I absolutely love that movie. So I don't want anyone to think he didn't like it.
All
No,
right.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Sounds good. So for me, my number 2 is John Wick Chapter 4. So
There it is.
we are big fans of this franchise. I'm a big fan of this franchise. And
Yes.
I don't know if I said this on the air or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it again. Keanu's best franchise is John Wick.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people are going to say, but what about The Matrix, Anderson? I'm like, The Matrix itself is an amazing movie, one of the best movies of all time. The Matrix franchise, not so strong in my opinion. You know, so the franchise, it's a fun franchise, don't get me wrong. But as far as the stronger franchise, it's the John Wick franchise. You know,
Yep.
for me, just each movie just being strong on its own, and it's expanding. As you said, we have the Continental show, we have Ballerina. And while John Wick 4 ended a certain way, they're talking about bringing it back for maybe a 5th movie. And you know what? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what you guys got up your sleeve.
It's a very strong ending. An ending a lot of people were torn on as far as chapter 4. But oh man, Chad Stahelski, amazing. You know, just
Bro,
another
just
great
so good.
directorial
So
effort
good.
here. Just a love letter to fight choreography, gun choreography. We have Keanu Reeves, amazing as John Wick. Donnie Yen, I mean,
Yes, bro.
oh, great character.
Come on.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
So good. I was like, give him a spinoff right now. Like,
Yeah.
let's go.
yeah, great storyline for him. We have Bill Skarsgård, you know, an actor right now. I'm not going to go down the list here. Oh, we have action fans got to see Scott Adkins in a
Scott
role.
Adkins. And I was waiting for you to name him because
Yeah.
one of the things I loved about the John Wick franchise as a whole is seeing stunt men and stunt women that I'm familiar with, that I've seen often, and other action heroes that would be people who they would consider to be in B action movies. And I think Scott Adkins gets thrown in that category a lot. They're like, oh, he makes B movies, but he's a phenomenal martial artist and a great fighter. So being able to see him in here, and they put him in a bunch of makeup. They put him in a heavy fat suit just to add some spice to it, and it was amazing. So it was a pleasure to see him in this movie.
Yeah, just such a fun movie. And when I went to see it, it immediately became one of, if not my favorite movie from the first half of the year.
Oh,
You
dude,
know,
it's good.
like I saw it and I said, okay, well, that's the one to beat. You know, and every single movie I saw after it, because it came out early last year. I want to say first 3 or 4 months of the year. You know, definitely before June. And
I think is it March? Let's find. I think it's March, or I might be wrong.
See here, March 2023.
It was March, right? Because I remember seeing the March a lot, like March.
Yeah, and then every movie after that, I was like, all right, well, does it beat John Wick? You know, does it beat John Wick? So, and let's be honest here, you know, we're kind of rewarding the franchise on top of the movie itself, and that's going to happen, you know, but that's okay because it's an IP now, but it originally started as something original, you know,
Yes.
and oh man, I love this franchise.
It's it's so good, man, because when it first started, it felt like it was intended to be a love letter to these stunt men and women and everything they put their bodies through and the choreography and everything else. And continuing through the franchise, it never lost sight of that. I never felt the movies started to become cheapened or like jump the shark, if you will. Like nothing ever felt out of place. It felt like the movie continued to be a love letter to those films. And because of that, it just makes everything like means something a little bit more. And it's like you said, we're rewarding it for the whole franchise before absolutely just crushed it for the year.
Yeah, and little movie trivia here. Keanu met the creators of the John Wick franchise while making The Matrix.
Yes, he
And,
did.
you know, he went on to continue making films and such, but they reunited for John Wick, and then it's like,
Hmm.
"Hey, we have something special here," and,
Yeah.
they just continued building on that. So number 2, John Wick Chapter 4.
Yes.
Alrighty, folks. So we have now arrived at the number 1 movie of 2023 for the Panel Bros. If you haven't heard us say it yet, you know that it's coming. So once again,
Yeah.
Ricardo, if you could please let us know your number 1 movie of 2023.
My number one movie of 2023 comes from the man himself, Christopher Nolan. In Nolan we trust. We're talking about Oppenheimer.
Yeah, so I'll interject here.
Yep.
Surprise, surprise, my number 1 movie as well for 2023 is
Yes.
Oppenheimer. Yes.
First of all, I'm just so happy our top three is the same. Our top three being
Yeah,
the same is
didn't
fantastic.
plan that at all. No.
Did not plan that. That's absolutely awesome. But Oppenheimer, I mean, we've spoken about Oppenheimer. The whole world was abuzz about Oppenheimer. This is a movie again that is it's just dialogue heavy and yet it feels epic. I was hanging out with friends recently the other day and we were talking about Oppenheimer and I could see the energy in their face. They were just like, "Oh my god, Oppenheimer, man. How amazing was this that?" And we're literally just having a discussion about a movie that was just about people debating, having dialogue, performances. Like everyone in this movie just brings it. And we talk about it time and time again. These actors want to be in a Christopher Nolan picture. They absolutely do. And being able to see these actors come together, huge lineup, man, just huge lineup. And it's always great because you see actors you haven't seen in a while, right? Like Josh Hartnett, I haven't seen him in a little bit. And it was awesome to see him show up in this movie. You know what I mean? Robert Downey Jr., outside of the Iron Man films, a little thing here and there, you don't really get to see him spread his wings again. It was so awesome to see him here. And look, now he's nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Cillian Murphy, Best Actor. And we're hoping that this is the big one. We're hoping this is the one that gives Christopher Nolan the best director, best picture. But you know, we could gush about this movie for hours, man, and rightfully so. But this is a must-own movie. This is I'm so glad we got to see it together. I'm so glad we got to see it in the IMAX and just absorb everything the way it was meant to. Nolan loves taking advantage of those IMAX screenings with the way he films, his sound design, his score, everything. And I was just absolutely blown away from beginning to end. Again, I could rave about this for hours, but come on. Oppenheimer's number one, baby.
Yeah, so we saw this together in IMAX, and
Mhm.
then like a couple months later, I saw it on a regular theater viewing,
Mhm.
and I needed to let things breathe. I'm like, "Oh man, that was so awesome." Was that my favorite movie of the year? I don't know yet. And then I watched it again, and it still hit. You know,
Yeah.
the recency bias didn't wear off. It was like, no, this is a really good movie. And I continued watching other movies, obviously, as the year um, rounded out there, but nothing I saw came
Yeah.
close. You know, nothing I
Yeah.
saw came close. And then award season started hitting, and it was like, okay, what's happening here? SAG, you know, the British Film Awards, Golden Globes, and then finally Oscars. And you see the nominations and wins starting to rack up, and it's like, oh no, not oh
Yeah.
no, but oh wow, is this really
Yeah.
happening? Is
It
Nolan
might happen.
really going to get his due here? Let's you know, we did our breakdown for Oppenheimer. We're going to do it again here for your for the top 10 here, just to remind you guys. So we're looking at 13 nominations for the
Whew.
Oscars: Best Sound, Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Film Editing, Best Costume Design, Best Cinematography, Best Adapted Screenplay, and that's because this was based on a book, which I did not know.
Mhm.
So it was, well, it was loosely based on a book, the 2005 biography, American Prometheus. So
Prometheus, yes.
American Prometheus. So that's what it was based on. Hence the adapted screenplay. We have Best Supporting Actress, Emily Blunt. Best Supporting Actor, Robert Downey Jr. Best Actor, Cillian Murphy. Best Director, Christopher Nolan. And also Best Picture. And I think this movie's going to run away with a few Oscars.
Oh yeah.
When all is said and done. And we're finally going to be able to hopefully say that Christopher Nolan got his Best Director and Best Picture, win there. And it's so ironic that we have a director that's made his name doing blockbusters. And by the way, this was a blockbuster.
Yeah.
It made $900 million. Over
Yeah,
900
dude.
million.
You're talking about a rated R picture, which is just dialogue, and it crushed it, man.
Yeah, and it had some exciting parts, but it wasn't an action movie, which he's done. It wasn't sci-fi. It wasn't any of these like things that Christopher Nolan has done before. And even though we talk about this a lot, he does a lot of originals, and it wasn't exactly an original idea. It was based on a book, but it's something that we're not used to seeing. It's a biopic, but it was more than just a biopic when you go to see it, and we don't want to spoil too many things as far as that goes.
Again, it absolutely felt epic, and I think what really made this movie stand out, not just of the movies released in 2023, but in Nolan's own filmography, it felt like this was the culmination of all his work, all the years of all the movies that he's accumulated and created. This felt like everything was building to this movie. The absolute execution of the film overall is as perfect as a film can get. And it just felt like as we were watching it, Nolan always finds a way for us to have an experience. Like it's a film going experience. And to take the subject matter as he did and portrayed on screen for us in a way that many people would probably consider a movie like this to be quote unquote boring. It's just a bunch of people talking at each other. And again, the way he frames it and the way the whole movie feels like you're racing against the clock and you have great characters and interactions. And we're literally hanging on the words of these characters. It really felt like the culmination of his work. I understand why people call it his magnum opus. I think The Dark Knight, we talk about often as the greatest comic book film ever made, and Nolan will always be attached to that. This feels like everything that he did in The Dark Knight and Batman Begins and Inception and Interstellar, like everything was building to this movie. And I felt that while watching it. And I remember leaving, and this is why I mentioned to you when we broke down these films, was I was so happy I didn't watch this and Barbie as Barbenheimer on the same day. I think both these movies needed to breathe. And when I walked out of Oppenheimer, like I was just like in shock, just like, wow, like you feel like you got hit by the explosion itself during that one scene, and you just had to sit and think about it. And like you mentioned, it's one of those times where it's like, all right, like let's see how this carries the rest of this year. Let's see if there's any recency bias. Let's see how, if we watch in a new format, sometimes watching a movie in the theater and watching it at home, you can get a very different experience. And I watched it in the theater in IMAX once, and then the next time I saw it, it wasn't until I watched it at home. And still, I was just absolutely just drawn to it like a moth to the flame. So there's no reason why it wouldn't be my number one for this year.
Yeah. So Oppenheimer made $960 million. And it broke a record by doing that. It's the highest selling biographical film of all time.
Yeah.
So it beat out Bohemian Rhapsody, which was at not too bad, 910 million for Bohemian Rhapsody. So I mean, that's amazing as far as that goes.
Yes.
But 960 million. It's I see Wikipedia described it here as an epic biographical thriller. And
yeah, right. That's what it feels like.
It's a thriller. So, once again, no secret. We love Nolan, and Nolan we trust.
And Nolan we trust.
Man. You like to call him the GOAT.
Yes.
Yes. It's okay. I mean, he's for me, he's already there as one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. For me, he's the best filmmaker of the modern, the modern era, in my opinion. Just such a good filmmaker. And after the Oscars, it'll just be that, that question, regardless of what happens. It's always, what's Nolan going to do next?
Yes. That's always been a great feeling to have. It's like, oh, I can't wait for his next film.
Yeah. So, all righty, folks. That was the Panel Bros top 10 best movies of 2023 ranking. If you could please give us a like, share, and subscribe on YouTube at the Panel Bros, we'd appreciate it. We'd also appreciate it if you could leave a comment below. Give us your thoughts on our top 10. Let us know what your favorite movies of 2023 were as well. And we'd appreciate that as well. Also, with those like, share, and subscribes, they help our reach. And with our reach, more of you can see us and listen to us. So thank you for that. Folks, for Ricardo Segura, my name is Anderson Marchak saying thank you for coming to the panel.